Bonjour, and welcome to French 4. We're going to start with a real basic review. So we're going to talk about regular verbs in the present tense. All the slides are in French, but I'm going to give you the instruction in English. So as I pause each time, go on to the next slide. We've always talked about 3 categories of regular verbs, but I'm going to give you a 4th category because within the IR verbs, there are really 2 types of IR verbs, so we're going to make one its own category. That leaves us with 4 categories of regular verbs: ER verbs, RE verbs, IR verbs, and IR verbs in the category of dormir, which are only a handful. Remember that for all kinds of verbs, when you conjugate them, you need to get to the stem. So you look at the infinitive, take off the infinitive ending, either ER, RE, or IR, and you're left with the stem. Most verbs in the French language end in ER. You take off the ER, and depending on what your subject is, who's doing the action, you either add an E, an ES, another E if it's il or elle or on, or a person's name, or a singular noun. If it's nous, you add ONS, vous is easy, and il and elle plural, or a plural noun, or a list of nouns, or more than one person's name, all require an ENT on the end. Please remember that all of those endings are silent. You do not pronounce them except for the nous and vous endings. You hear the on and the a, but nothing else. Also remember that when the nous form is a verb that ends in either G or C, you need to keep that G or C soft before the O. So for a G, you would add E, like in mangeons, or for a C, like in commencer, you would add an CD underneath the C to keep the C soft before the O. So you would have mangeons and commençons. And that goes for all stems that end in G or C. RE verbs are very similar to ER verbs in the way they sound, but not in the way that they put their endings on. For je and tu, you add an S. For il and elle and on, or a person's name, you add a T, but not always, and that's why I put it in parentheses. If the infinitive, when you take the RE off, does not end in D, then you have to add a T, because D and T are phonetically the same point of articulation. So if it's a P, for example, like in the verb rompre, and you take off the RE and you end with a P, even though you don't pronounce that P, you still have to add a T, a silent T on the end. So that you get a silent P and a silent T together. For D's, you don't do that, but for anything else, you do. So that's something to keep in mind. Remember that the singular endings are silent, so is the ENT, although it does make you pronounce the consonant, but the ONS and the EZ you must say. IR verbs are the fun ones because they add that extra syllable in the plural. So instead of just a normal ending, you also have that extra syllable that you have to pronounce. So we end up with a lot of S sounds for many of these verbs. These are verbs like finir, choisir, remplir, all those that we learned. So the IS, ISIT all sound the same because you say the E, but not the S or the T. And then you get isson, isse, and is. Remember, the ENT is silent. You do not say it, but you do say the S on the end. IR verbs like sortir are a sort of a subset of IR verbs. They really look more like RE verbs. They add that SST just like an RE verb does. They don't have the extra syllable in the plural. However, what they do that the other verbs do not do is that they take off a letter from the stem. So if you take the IR off of sortir or partir or dormir, then you get SORT, PART, DORM. However, for the singular forms, only the singular forms, you take off that final consonant. So you don't say SORV, S-O-R-T-S, you say SORV, S-O-R-S. That T in the middle drops away. It comes back again in all the plural forms. So before the EZ and the ONS and the ENT, you have to have the T or the M or whatever the consonant happens to be. So you don't hear it and you don't see it in the singulars, you do hear it and you do see it in all the plurals. Okay, so let's do a little practice. I've given you 10 sentences, each with a separate verb, one of the different types of verbs, and it's up to you to either write down on a piece of paper or spell it in your mind, however you want to do this, to see if you get the right form of the verb. On the PowerPoint, that each of the next slides will add one correct answer to the list each time. So once you've thought about the answer to number 1, change slides, check what you did. If you have a problem, make a note, see if you can figure it out, and if not, come and talk to me. And then go on to the next slide, do the same thing, and just as you want, at your own speed, go down through those 10 and see if you can't get the correct answers. Bonne chance!